evening. Tonight we go back to Benhar, where locals are stunned by the news that the existence of their town is threatened. But first, the spread of tuberculosis through the country's cattle and deer herds could spell disaster for New Zealand exports. That's according to a high-ranking member of Federated Farmers speaking at a conference in Oamaru, as Mark Price reports.
The possum's the main culprit in the spread of bovine tuberculosis. Its numbers are growing, and that's assisting the spread of the disease. In the cattle herds of other countries, there's also a tuberculosis problem. Ireland, for instance, is pouring millions of dollars into TB eradication. North Otago farmers yesterday were warned that New Zealand must keep pace with the rest of the world's efforts.
When we see European community countries who are spending vast sums of money eradicating TB, I believe it's inevitable that in time those countries will look upon us as not being TB free and therefore will put pressure on us to either eradicate the disease or stop sending product there. Now, we may be 5-10 years down the line from that happening, but I think we must realise it is going to happen.
Mr. Peterson's chairman of the Meat and Wool Council and has been closely involved with animal health. He doesn't believe that poisoning possums is the solution to the TB problem. Research is what's needed. He says it's worked with foxes and rabies.
Well, in Europe they developed an oral vaccine for fox rabies. Basically, instead of poisoning the foxes, they vaccinated the foxes by introducing the vaccine to the bait. It may be, with large amounts of money, possible to develop that sort of vaccine. These are the things we don't even know the answers to.
What's teal blue and full before it's even officially open? Queenstown's new Backpackers hostel, which is provoking some criticism for its rather radical colour scheme. But the owners are unapologetic, as Michael Lynch discovered today.
Queenstown's definitely on the hitchhiker's guide to the galaxy these days, and the flavour of the month there is pavlova. Even if the colour scheme is getting up the nose of councillors and visitors alike.
Yeah, no, I don't like it.
That's supposed to be good for business.
But the two owners have no apologies. They picked up $1 million site in central Queenstown for half that price when the Southland Area Health Board became desperate to recoup something of what was the old maternity hospital.
People that come through are young people on holiday and having a good time. So why do they have to come to something that's a bit boring? Let's liven the place up.
And they're milking the maternity notion for all it's worth. 5,000 babies were delivered in this room.
Look who's here.
At $10 a night, 13 when they get the pavlova organised, as they do in the changed Dunedin hostel. This sort of accommodation's eating a hole in the youth hostel and motel business. They've taken over an office block in Dunedin, an old monastery in Greymouth. It's all green and it's all go.
Out the front here, we'll be building a 100-bed lodge.
Whether the council wants pavlova spreading all over the lawn remains to be seen.
An Englishman's battling rather miserable weather in the south to complete a marathon around-the-world run for cancer sufferers. Ian MacDonald arrived in Dunedin's Octagon at lunchtime today, having already covered 24,000 kilometres in several countries. 37-year-old Ian has raised more than $275,000 so far by running what amounts to a marathon a day. Cromwell has its giant fiberglass fruit. Gore has its brown trout. But who knows what sort of new monument Clinton has? Difficult question, especially as this particular monument is on a farm off the main road and just out of town. But Michael Lynch tracked it down.
Like the monarch of the Glen, this Wapiti stag looks set to stand here forever, even if it doesn't quite ring true. But there's a cousin in under the trees, and quite a story behind them.
When I started building them was in the height of the rural depression, and we didn't have any money to really do fencing, you name it, on this farm. It cost you money. So for the price of a bit of reinforcing and a bit of concrete, I could happily spend 3 weeks building a wapiti. And not very productive, is it? But to me it's... and it reminds me of them, you know. I see them there and I have such a great love for these animals.
David Mackey's bitter, though. His stag's dedicated to what he calls 10 years decimation by helicopters of Fiordland's Wapiti herd. Through the 70s, thousands of deer were netted. They formed the basis of our farm deer industry. David Mackey says the recreational hunters have been double-crossed in the process.
They're literally taken out, and those animals belong to you and me and every New Zealander. You know, and the deer farming industry has really, they're the ones that have benefited. Well, mainly the government. You know, you take the stock tax, the government have probably been the winners out of the whole thing. So, you know, it just really makes you boil, but it's a frustrating fight.
In the meantime, the Wapiti herd set up by the government and promised to the hunters stays on a Fiordland farm, fattening up to grace a German dinner table. The stalkers can't get a shot at it. At least David Mackey knows his stag is no illusion.
Today, Benhar was a community in shock, having learned yesterday that the ceramics factory which has sustained it will not be rebuilt. While workers talked over their redundancies with the manager, the town took stock of its future. Kathy Graham reports.
Benhar's been a company town since last century. The McSkimmings who ruled the factory and the town kept it free of grog and God-fearing. Edna Reid's grandfather started work here in McSkimming's day, and her father after him. She inherited this company cottage when she was made redundant several years ago. At 63, she's probably Benhar's oldest resident, but it's the young people she's concerned for.
Deep down, I think a lot of them are thinking, well, this is it. And the lad next door to me the other night, he told me that it was going to be yesterday. He said, I don't think I'll be sleeping much tonight. He said, I just feel all nervous, you know. That was just the way he felt, and he said that a lot of them felt the same way, you know. Just sort of waiting for the chop.
The town's quiet today. It's as if it's in mourning. Workers who lost their jobs yesterday say they don't have anything to say. They don't know what they'll do.
Well, it's almost as if someone has died, as if there's been a death in the family, and people are in shock at the moment, and they're reeling from it.
Malcolm West is the relieving principal at Benhar's school. There are just 14 pupils. Many have parents working at the factory, and they're well aware of what happened yesterday.
They said that they're rebuilding up in Auckland.
They're rebuilding up in Auckland? What did Dad say about that?
Well, I don't exactly know because I was wasn't there. She was at school. Yeah, crying my eyes out.
Why are you crying?
Because I didn't want them to rebuild up in Auckland.
Although the role's small, Malcolm West doesn't think the school will disappear overnight. And he does see a future for Benhar.
People all over the world who look for a rural retreat close to their work, and this is an obvious satellite town for Balclutha, for Kaitangata, and for the rural area itself.
Down at the factory, a small band of workers were waiting to see the boss to talk over redundancies and what other prospects may be available. A few are still tidying up at the plant.
Well, I suppose the air's fairly black.
Most of the workers were reluctant to speak to us. Bill Lundy's worked for the company for just on 35 years. He says there's nothing left now.
You just had Sue Boys just before, 2 or 3 months ago. They've put around about 80 women out of work in Balclutha. Well, what show have our girls got here trying to find a job now?
What about the men?
Well, they'll be as bad. There's not much work about South Otago now. Freezing works are virtually got a stable workforce, Years ago they could come and go up the North Island or anywhere, but those things don't happen now.
And on that note, good night. We'll be back Monday.